Welcome to the Miller Report, Real Clear Journalism. I'm Maggie Miller. Today, we're discussing James Varney's latest investigation into the difficulties facing America's critical mining industry. This July, the United States opened a rare earth mine for the first time since Dwight Eisenhower was president. Ramaco's Brook mine in Ranchester, Wyoming, is the first such domestic operation in 70 years. The Trump administration is calling it a key step towards breaking China's grip on critical minerals, materials essential to everything from smartphones to electric vehicles, advanced medical devices, oil refining, and missile guidance systems. Right now, China produces 90% of the world's rare earth elements and dominates 30 of the 50 minerals that the U.S. considers critical. Once minerals are pulled from the ground, China's dominance in processing makes its position even stronger. And in a further assertion of market control, they are tightening export restrictions. Experts warn unshackling American mining from reliance on China will neither be swift nor certain. Securing a permit for non-coal mining on public lands takes 7 to 10 years, more than a decade if litigation gets involved. That means that even cutting the process in half would still put new mines beyond the end of Trump's second term. And an added challenge, an aging workforce without enough replacements ready to take over. Some of the industries say that meaningful change may not be felt for 10 to 15 years. The U.S. Geological Survey says America is still significantly undermapped. In 2019, only 6% of the priority mineral areas had modern geological maps. Under the Trump-era Earth Mapping Resource Initiative, that figure has grown to 36% with a goal of full mapping by 2030. Still, experts caution that even with streamlined permits, new mines will take years and billions of dollars to bring online. And with the environmental concerns, political divides, and China's entrenched lead, the path forward will be a long one. The Brook mine may be the start of a new chapter, but it's also proof that winning the mineral race will require more than just digging. We're joined now by the lead investigator on this story, James Varney. James, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Maggie.
So all of this red tape makes it seem like this is somewhat of a pipe dream to up our critical mineral production. Is it, or do you see the removal of some of these obstacles by the Trump administration as a significant move towards reducing dependence on China in the next decade?
Well, they are significant moves. I think the question will be whether or not they're able to develop enough momentum to keep them lasting after Trump. Because like you say, I think pipe dream maybe is a little strong, but there is a lot of work to be done. And if the political will to do it were to peter out, or if after Trump, the Democrats were to come back into power, they tend to not favor mining as much. So I think that they do need to develop some momentum on these policies in the next 2 years, 3 years, and then that might give them a chance of keeping it going regardless. And if that's the case, then it won't be a pipe dream, but it will be difficult, and it isn't going to happen in the short term.
Do you see bipartisan support, or is it really one-sided?
I think that there's definitely bipartisan support to try to alleviate the pressure on the supply chains, because so much of this right now is either the source is coming from China or the processing is happening in China. And obviously it's the processing part that makes the things that we need, the Kevlar and the things for the energy. And, this has all kinds of applications. So I think that they always want to alleviate that. That happens Democrats and Republicans. Whether or not they want to go through with the mining that it's going to take to get this, I think you have a more partisan divide on that, because obviously the Greens are opposed to most of this, and most of the Democrats in Washington tend to side with the Greens. So I think that the support is for making this happen, but the way it's going to happen right now is going to have to generate some more Democratic support.
Fair enough. So with so little of our mineral areas mapped, where do you see the greatest potential in our country?
I wish I could tell you that.
I guess they don't even know, right?
Right. The U.S. Geological Survey told us that they haven't completed maps like they should, or what we need, of all of our territory in the U.S. But we do know that the mountain the mountain range goes from Canada to Chile. Chile is already a pretty big mining country. So there is that spine. And, you and I spoke with some mining execs during the energy forum that Real Clear had. And they were talking about forming this kind of alliance with our allies here in the Western Hemisphere to make a sort of counterbalance to China. So I can't tell you right now, I can't pinpoint the exact geographic location where this stuff is, but there does seem to be a lot of confidence that we have a good supply. We just have to go get it, and we might have to bring in some partners to do that.
Do you see the United States actually making these partnerships? I don't know if it aligns, you think, with what Trump's administration is looking to achieve.
Well, the trade war, or I don't know if that's even right, but the tariffs and the discussions that have been going on with Canada, that might give us some pause, right? It looks like we need to smooth some things over there with that relationship. But I think our relationship is pretty strong with Chile right now. And I do think that Canada and Washington are going to work it out. This is probably a lot of trade saber rattling, so to speak, right? So I do think that that's something that could happen. Again, that goes right back to like the mining thing, though, because we're talking about something that takes more than a year usually to come to fruition. So if we got to do that, we should get started on it now, because again, all of this stuff, you want to have a lot of momentum going into 2027, 2028, and beyond.
Definitely. And you just briefly touched on it, but I do want to go into it a little deeper. You and I both spent some time at the Energy Future Conference this spring, where we got to speak with industry leaders on this and similar topics. So let's talk about the energy future with regards to critical minerals. Do you see this lining up? Do you see this being, the step forward that we were waiting for? What do you think?
I think I do see it simply because of necessity. We talked a second ago about the fact that this isn't just something that we need for quote unquote energy, right? The Defense Department has things that it likes about this. The Greens actually have things that they like about this, because the solar and the wind equipment is built around this. And so you've got various departments in Washington that all have something at stake. And I think that usually increases your chances for getting something done, right? If you got more than one party interested, then you're going to get more demand, right? And in this case, more supply of federal money. And that's really what we're talking about, right? Because, and we mentioned this in the story, it's kind of the flip side of the Green New Deal. Washington is going to have to spend a lot of money on this. Already, we've seen the Defense Department put $400 million into what they call MP, which is Mountain Pass. It's a mining thing going on in California. A previous story we had talked about some money going to a place in Nevada that's bringing out lithium. And we just had Secretary Wright out at the first rare earth mine that the U.S. has opened up in 70 years in Wyoming. So all of that, I think, indicates that this is going to happen, and I feel pretty confident about it. But again, the pace that it's going to happen on, I think, is the real question mark.
I mean, it's crazy for me to think that it's been 70 years since Dwight Eisenhower was president. I mean, do you think it's just because policy has been pushing in another direction? Why do you think it's been so long?
I think that you haven't had really much political impetus to do this at all in Washington. We spoke a moment ago about the power of the green groups, which I think has been pronounced over the last decades to kind of crimp any sort of new mining initiatives. And again, going back to that forum and that the Real Clear had in Washington, you remember the guy said, there's always been this, there still is this kind of stigma around mining. And obviously there are some degree of environmental degradation is going to occur. So I think for a long time, people just have looked the other way. They don't want to do it. We also bring up in our story the fact that all the schools that we had that train miners have just dwindled. We're down to about a dozen. So all of those reasons, I think, have come together to kind of make the industry dormant in the U.S. for the past couple of decades at least.
Are we going to need to up our education in this to make skilled workers? Because obviously, this is something that the government's putting money into. So obviously, there is that kind of, impetus there. So are we going to see, these schools maybe get more funding, or these schools try to outreach more to help that aging workforce issue?
The government's putting money in now. We always have to put that caveat in, right? Because we've been talking about whether or not the political will for this is going to stay constant. And I think that's also going to be a big factor in whether or not we start to develop the training for the workforce that we need for this. They talk about a gray tsunami, I guess, in the industry, meaning that top executives and the people with most of the knowledge on this have sort of aged out. So we can't answer that, right? I think as long as we do have a spotlight on this, as long as people are talking about it, as long as people understand what the problem is, it probably would make those kind of schools more attractive to students. And at a minimum, the dozen or so that we have now, schools might get stronger. I don't think we're going to ever see Columbia and Berkeley, who I guess at one time were the leading schools for this. I don't see them turning out minors, right? Because, they still sort of have like that stigma. They still got the lamp helmet and the sooty faces and hacking cough. So I think that there's a chance, but all those things are going to have to remain constant that need to happen.
So, what are you looking at with regards to this? Like, where are your sights set, as well as what do you want to leave people with?
I think the sights are set mostly out west, right? Because I don't know if anyone, how many of our listeners or viewers have driven around the country, but when you do, when you're out west, it's extraordinary how much of the country is federal land. I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of acres. And as we talked about at the beginning here, they haven't mined it all, excuse me, they haven't prospected it all or gotten a very good geological map of all of it yet. So I think you're going to see a lot of attention on the spine of the Rockies and in the states around there. And then you will probably also see a lot of attention trying to develop better relationships on the mining front with Canada and with Chile and with these countries that have that, I'm going to mispronounce the word, but that cordillera of mountains that runs through the North and South American continents.
Definitely. Well, Jim, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
That was it for the Miller Report, Real Clear Journalism. I'm Maggie Miller. I'll see you next time.